Daily Beats Production. You are listening to Daily Beats. Daily Beats Production. You are listening to Daily Beats. Daily Beats Productions. You are listening to Daily Beats. Daily Beats Production. Daily Beats Production. Daily Beats Production. You are listening to Daily Beats. Daily Beats Production.
What's up, YouTube? My name is Tiago Duarte and welcome to another live stream here at Daily Beats. So this is the producer show, the show where I get all of your questions and I answer them here in videos so that I can help you out or I can help you speed up your learning process so that you become a better producer faster. So the title or the phrase for this channel is Master the Software, so that is just you and music, and that's the main idea that I try to convey here with these videos or try to help you with these videos is I want to help you out, speed up your learning process so that you learn the tool faster, so that you overcome the struggles, maybe that's the word, the struggles of using the tool, so that you can just stop thinking about how to do things and you just do things, and at that point it becomes just you and music through this software that we call digital audio workstations. So that was a big introduction for the live stream, but that's basically what I do here or what I try to do here. If you have any questions, you can leave them here in the chat. I will try to answer the questions. I have a couple of questions here already set up. I have 6 questions lined up so that I can answer them, and those questions come from subscribers, from my comments, from YouTube channel, and stuff like that. So you can also subscribe to the newsletter. I have a link in the description for the Producer Show newsletter, where you can subscribe and you will receive an email every Friday with an email. You will receive an email, with a link where you can click on the link and submit your questions, and those questions will have priority compared to all the other ones that I have here. And I will not be sending any marketing material, will just be information regarding the live stream and the questions that I have from you guys. So I think that's it in terms of introductions. I have also, I want to say that I'm going to do these live streams every Saturday at around 6 p.m. GMT +2, which is the Berlin time. I'm located in Stuttgart, so anytime you want to check out the time differences, you can Google the time zone of Stuttgart, compare with yours, and you will see what time it requires you to join the live stream so that you can post questions and you can pretty much check out the live stream. So let me see what I have here. As you can see, I have here the chat where you can post questions, and yeah, I think that's it. So let's start with the first question that I have here. This is from a comment that I had on one of my videos, on one of my YouTube videos. And the question is it possible to make a full song with FPC? The short answer is yes. The long answer is I don't know why you would like to do that with just the FPC. But yeah, it's possible. And let me jump into FL Studio so that I can show you how it would be possible and why you wouldn't want to do that. It's relatively simple, but let's jump into FL Studio. As you can see, if I load up FPC, I go to Drums, FPC, and I have here a default preset or an empty preset, and basically you can load every single sample that you want. Let's say that I have, let's go here to some samples that I might have. Yeah, this is a free pack, so let's go here, sample pack. I don't think I have the time of this here, so let's try to check the timing of this one here, and this should be close to 90. Yeah, 90. 90 is the timing of this sample. So let's say that I want to make a full song with this and I have a couple of samples. What I could do is just drag a sample here, and then I could bring a kick, a hi-hat, and a snare. So if I were to do this in the FPC, I could just go now to the piano roll, and what's going on? No, that's not what I want. Let's delete this. Let's go to the FPC here. And you can see that I have now the sample. So if I were to do this, and now I could just put a kick. I forgot the snare. Where is the snare? Oh, it's up there. So I could just do a snare like this, and I could put a very simple, I'm just going to put a very simple pattern so that it's easier for us to do something here. So as you can see, it's possible to make a full song with just the FPC. So one thing that could also work is like if you just have slices of samples instead of having a full sample like I played here. You see this is a full sample. If you just have slices of sample and you want to mimic the workings of an MPC or something like that, where you have just the pads with samples, that could work also. But I would say that you could create several instances of the FPC, but usually I just use the FPC for drums, and that's the main purpose of this plugin here. Because one thing that happens is like if you have a sample like this one playing, and this is 90 BPMs, if I move this up to maybe 95, what happens is that now we lose the timing of the sample. So if I play now, so you see it started to sound awful. Why? Because this sample here, which was 90 BPMs, now it doesn't work. If I just have drums, what happens is that if I just have drums, I can just change the timing, and the drums they speed up, but they don't change in terms of timing. So they don't get out of timing because it's just a drum. Of course, if you have slices, then you can use the FPC. But if you just want slices from a sample, the best way is to use Slice X. So let's say that I wanted to do some slicing of that sample that I used, which I shouldn't close the thing. I think it was this one. So I could just bring the sample, the slice here, or the sample into Slice X, and now I have the slices so that I can just go ahead and slice everything as I see fit. And another advantage of this is that now I can also pitch this down. Let's go to 700 to be an exact number. And you see the point. Now we would be able to manipulate the samples better, have the slices correctly set up here with the markers, and it would be much easier. So again, recapping, you can do an entire or a full song with just the FPC, but I don't think the FPC was designed with that intent. I would say the FPC is more for drums, at least. That's how I use it. As you can see, I have a bunch of drum presets here. These ones are from the Headbanging Trap Drums, which is a sample pack that I created and is available at dailybits.pt. There's also a new sample pack that I'm testing that is going to be called Soprano Drums that will be available also. As you can see, I have some from Samples from Mars. These ones I bought from Samples from Mars, and these are really, really cool. I really enjoy using these ones. I have some Techno Kicks here. As you can see, this is mostly drums. And I like to use these more for drums. And usually when you have this type of pads, they are called drum machines because they are mostly used for drums. Of course, in the hip-hop world, we started to use those drum machines as a sampler, where we would get samples and slice them up. But it's easier to do that with Slice X here because you have a little bit more control over the samples you can, or the markers, and it's a little bit easier. And you just drag and drop the sample and automatically gives you some markers so that you can play around with. And on the other way around, you have to make the samples yourself and then just drag and drop single slices of into the pads, which is maybe not the best way because it's a little bit more time consuming. And of course, it could work, but again, I would use the FPC just for drums, or at least that's how I do it most of the time. And whenever I want to work with samples or slicing samples, I would go for the Slice X here, which is the best tool for that job. So I think that's it for this question here. Okay, let's see the next one that I have here. Okay, this one is a question that it took me a while to get to a point in my music production career or a career as a producer where I would get some good melodies. And the question is how to make cool melodies or good melodies. And there's no scientific and technical question for this. It's kind of like you can have some technical knowledge that can help you with getting some good melodies, but for the most part, you just have to listen to a lot of music, getting the notes of the music that you like, maybe getting an idea on how to make those chords, those melodies, and just learning a lot about music. I think that's the best way to go about it. Of course, you also have to understand a little bit of music theory, scales, chords, and chord progressions and all that stuff. It's very, very important also, and that can really help you even more. So if there was one thing that I would say that to focus on that would increase your probability of making great melodies will be to learn music theory. And of course, if you might have just a natural gift for making melodies without any formal knowledge, without any theory, music theory or anything. But again, for me, one thing that really helped me was understanding a little bit more music theory, and of course, doing a lot of beats. I've been in my since I started this YouTube channel, I have produced 802 beats, and I've made maybe 400 and something tutorials. So that's a lot of work. That's a lot of content that I created, and I cannot stress how much how important it is to practice. So the more you practice, the more stuff you have, and the better your beats become. And lately, all the beats that I usually post on my YouTube channel. In the beginning, I had no comments, and nowadays I usually have a couple of comments every beat saying, "Oh, this melody sounds cool," or "This beat is hard," or stuff like that. Because I worked on improving the quality of my beats, and that's work that you have to actually put. You have to put the work so that you gain the experience and you go through a lot of tracks, a lot of songs, a lot of beats, because that will really help you with getting better. And one thing that I strongly recommend is don't be afraid to publish your stuff, even if it's trash. A lot of beats that I have from my early career as a YouTuber, as a music producer, those beats are really bad, and I don't like most of them. But it's there. They are there, and it's a part of my growth as a music producer, and I will not remove them because I'm proud of them, even though they might not sound as today's beats that I have today. I think it's at least for me, it's something that I'm proud of because it shows to me the progression as a producer and how I grew as a music producer, which I'm still growing, and you will never reach a point where you are completely done. But there's a kind of a curve of skill versus good music that you have, and usually that curve, it's kind of like in the beginning you have very low music and you put a lot of effort, but then at the end you have like you might put the same effort, but then you get better and better music. And to improve from having good music already, from having like to 80 to 90%, it's way harder than going from 0 to maybe 70%. So it's now I'm in a different position where I have to get some different knowledge to really improve my things. But yeah, that's how you make cool melodies. I don't know if that was the best explanation possible, but one thing that I would focus is to learn about music theory. That can really help and speed up your learning curve in terms of making good melodies. And listen to a lot of music. I mean, if you want to be good at music, you must know about music. Okay, so next up, what is top-down mixing? I've talked about in the past about my mixing process, and I talked about something that it's called top-down mixing. And basically, there are a lot of ways to mix tracks, and there's no specific way for to have a good mixing. There are specific ways. That's not what I meant, but there's no one formula for all. I do it in a way. Other people do it in a different way. I like the results that I get with the way that I mix, and that's the approach that I usually go for. And again, now I'm at the point where I want to learn other approaches so that I can get the best out of every single approach and incorporate that into my own style. But one of the approaches or one of the techniques that I learned is the top-down mixing or top-down mixing technique. And I have here an example with Studio One that I want to show you. As you can see, this is one of the tracks that I remixed. So I did this track, as you can see, EDM from start to finish, season 5. And this is the 5th installment of the EDM from start to finish series. And what I did was I took the stems and I remixed the project because I felt I could do a better job now. And this I recorded everything, and this will be available as for all the members of the channel. So if you want to see the full course with everything that I do, you can join this YouTube channel, Daily Beats, and you will be able to see this. So this will be out very soon. But if we go here to the mixing, to the mix tab, you can see that there's a bunch of plugins here. And if I just put here this in the drop, and if we take a listen, I will bypass all the plugins. Where is my... Okay, there. I want that button there. So let's listen to this part, the drop, and then we can take the effects off so that we can see the before and after. Without? With? You can see that the mix is way brighter, it's well balanced, it has way more power. And this is the stuff that I do here when I mix the track. And as you can see, I usually use EQs and compressors. That's mostly what I use when I'm mixing. But basically, top-down mixing is when you start adding instruments only on the main track. So usually when I started this mixing session, I had no inserts here. I had no effects in my channels. And the point where I start is at the top. So if we think of a mixing session or a mixing project, what we have is we have several instruments. So every single instrument that you can see here, kicks, drums, snares, or kick, a head, snare, which belongs to the drums, basses, synths, pads, brass, bells, strings, all this stuff here. These are the individual instruments of a track. And then every single instrument here combines into this main channel here. So if we look in a hierarchical, what's the word? Hierarchy. It's hard to pronounce. But if we look at the organization of everything, if we think of top down, what would be the top channel? That would be the mix here, the main in this case. Because everything that I add here and I change here, it will reflect in all of these instruments. So let's say that I add a Pro EQ here, and let's say that I apply a low cut like this. If I play now, you see that this is removing, applying this low cut here, or the cut of the lower frequencies to all these instruments here. So I consider this the top channel. It's the channel that you can affect all the other instruments or all the other tracks, and you can do this in the single main channel. And because of that, I consider this the top channel. So this would be the channel where you can control everything. So because of that, this is, if we look at the name top-down mixing, this is where I start adding my effects first. Without having all these effects here, I go to the main channel and I start to add effects here. After I do my processing here on this channel, then I go to the other ones here. Usually I start with the drums. As you can see here, I have a drum buzz. But if I didn't have a drum buzz, I would start with a kick, then I had snare, and so on and so forth, until I go through every single instrument, and then I apply my effects that I want: EQ, compression, distortion, reverb, delay, whatever. But that's the process of top-down mixing. First, you start on the top channel, which would be in this case the main or the master in FL Studio. If we look at FL Studio Mixer, we have here the master. This would be the top channel, and then we go to every single instrument and add the effects that we want. Why we do this? Because let's say that let me show you here the EQ that I have here. So this was the EQ that I applied for the main channel. This was the first EQ that I applied in all the tracks. And I applied 1.5 dB. You can see that this is a very gentle EQ, even though this looks like a big curve. But if we go to 24 dB, this is a very gentle curve. But applying these minus 1.5 dBs on these frequencies here, like 82, 156, and 278, is the same as taking this EQ and applying into every single channel. So with one EQ here, it's the same as going into every single channel and applying minus 1.5 on these frequencies. So that's why it's the top channel, because everything that you do on this channel affect all the other channels or instruments that compose the mix or the track. So that's why I like to start here. I do the EQ that I like, I do the compression that I like, and then afterwards I go back and I go into every single channel. So we start in the top and then we end up in the down. So top-down mixing. And for me, this process has, I've learned this process, and it became one of my frameworks to do my mixing. And I really enjoy it. I think it's a very, very cool way to mix, and it can really help me. At least it helped me to take my tracks from amateur level to a more professional level, and I really, really enjoy this way of mixing. So I think that's it. This is what is top-down mixing, and yeah. If you really learn a framework for mixing, mixing can become a very simple process. In my first years doing YouTube and making beats and mixing and stuff like that, it always felt like there was something missing. I was not sure what to do when I was mixing stuff. But after I learned a framework and understood how to get the best of my instruments, then everything became clear. And now I just follow the same framework, the same steps, and at the end I have the mix that I want and that I like. And as you've seen or listened to, whenever I take all the plugins, the mix sounds weaker, sounds muffled. When I put everything, it sounds brighter and it sounds more powerful, which is what I want in a good mix. Okay, so again, if you want to check out the course where I remix the EDM from start to finish series 5, you have to join the YouTube channel. I will leave the videos there, and they will be available very soon. As soon as I finish editing everything, I will start publishing. And I think that would be a really cool way. And more videos will come to the members of the channel, because I want to support those who support the channel also. Okay, so quick announcements. I will be doing this live stream. This is the producer show. This is the show where I gather all of your questions and I answer them here with videos, so that I can help you speed up your learning process, so that you become a better producer faster. And the mission of this the YouTube channel at this point is master the software, so that it's just you and music. As soon as you overcome as soon as you really understand how to use the software, then you have no barriers, and you can just whenever you think of something, of an idea to make, you just go into the software and you do it. So you reduce the barrier of the DAW, so that it's just you and the music that you want to do. That's the idea here. If you want your questions answered, you can leave them on my YouTube channels, or YouTube comments on the YouTube videos that I post. That was hard. Also, you can put them here in the chat, and you can subscribe to the newsletter, where I have a link. So in the description, there's a link, so that you can subscribe to the newsletter, where I will be sending you an email every Friday, one day before the stream, where you can post your questions, and those questions usually have priority here. And that's pretty much it. I will not be sending any products or marketing material. Will be just the forms, so that you can post the questions. All right, let's go to the next question. And the next question that I have here is how to export stems. And there's two things here that we have to consider. One is mixer tracks versus playlist tracks. And I'm going to try to explain how to do that. First, I want to show you how to actually export stems. And then I'm going to break down what is the mixer tracks versus the playlist tracks, because there's very different things. So let's jump into FL Studio. And if we look at the playlist, we have these tracks here. And as you can see, track 2, track 3, track 4, and so on. So there's a unlimited number, or 500 tracks, more than enough. And if we go to the mixer, then we also have, I think, 125 tracks. So as you can see, these are different tracks, or inserts in this case. That's what they call them by default. So every time that we go here to the channel rack and we add, let's bring the drums, the FPC. Let's say that I want to make a drum pattern. Let's do something very quickly here, or very quick. Just a simple drum pattern, nothing too crazy, just to exemplify what I want. So we have this pattern here, very simple. If I go to the playlist and I put this on track 1, if I play this, you see that it plays normally. But I could, for instance, put this on different tracks. So let's say that I can take the hi-hats and put the hi-hats on a new pattern. And then I could just have the hi-hats on the beat 5th onwards. So I will start with the drums or kick and snare. And at this point, we have the hi-hats. I could break down also the kick and the snare here and have just also that. But as you can see, now we are using 2 tracks, track 1 and track 2. But if we go into the mixer, and let's say that I put the FPC on track 1. So now this is the part where I want you to focus a little bit more. So if we think on track 1 and track 2 in the playlist, we have 2 tracks. And if I play this, we have only 1 track here on the FPC or on the mixer. And when we have the hi-hats coming on track 2, we still also only have 1 insert here in the mixer. So it's a very a distinctive thing, and that's why usually they call these tracks and they call these inserts, because they are not the same. You can have, for instance, this here all over the place, like so. And if I play this one, even though it's in track 3, this will always be playing on track 1. So it's important to understand this distinction here, because this distinction can really help you when you are organizing your project or trying to export the project, the stems in this case. So what happens? Let's say that I want to export just this one here, the drums. The kick and the snare. How could I do that? First of all, you could just solo this. Just solo this track, and if I play this, you don't have the hi-hats. And then you would go to File, Export, select a folder, let's say this one, and then you would render to untitled.wave, because I didn't select the name, and you would go to wave, and you would just, normally you would have something like this, and you would just go and start the track. And then you would have just the track 1 exported. This could be one way, and then you would have to go to every single track that you have, solo that track, and then export everything into one single track. So you will have to go again to export, wave, select the name, put save, and then put wave, and then start the process. So if you have like 20 tracks, you have to do this 20 times. An easier way to export the stems is to go through as we've seen here. Let's go. We have these split mixer tracks. This is a very cool feature that we have here in miscellaneous. And whenever we enable this, what happens is that FL Studio is going to break down every single mixer insert in the mixer and is going to export a single wave file for every single channel. So let's say in this case I have a kick, snare, and the hi-hats. But now I want to separate this one as kick and hi-hat, kick and snare, sorry, and then hi-hat. How could I do this into the playlist or here into the FPC? It's very simple. The easiest way would be to duplicate this, duplicate the FPC, and put the hi-hats on a different instance of the FPC, and then put the second instance of the FPC in a different channel. Then I would have kick and snare, and then I would have hi-hats. Now, if I go and play this from here onwards, you see that we have hi-hats and we have kick and snare. So if I were to export these ones here, I would go here, export, wave. Let's put these, we can leave it there. Let's say, let's do test or stems. Let's do stems, the name of the audio tracks. And as you can see, it's going to render to stems.wave. But now, because I have these split mixer tracks, what is going to happen is that if I export this, if I go to that folder where I had the project open, let me just open it quickly. What happens is that now we see that I have 1, 2, 3, 4 wave files. So we have the current, we have the hi-hat, kick, snare, and the master. So the master and the current, this is something that happens when you export when you go to export and split mixer tracks. What happens is that it's going to also export the master and the selected channel. So if you have this channel here, this is the selection that you have. Whenever you export, you will get the current as this one here. So I usually just go and delete the current and the master, and then I have 2 other stems. And if I bring these ones here, you see that now I have only kick and snare, and then I have one only with the hi-hats. And if I combine both, it's the same as these ones here. So this is the way I usually like to export stems. It's just I go to every single instrument on my channel rack or audio clip or whatever, or plugin. And what I do, let me just delete these so that is not confusing. I go into every single channel. If I have like an FPC with several instruments, I break down and I just copy or create a duplicate instance of this case, in this case of the FPC, and then I move the Midi around to have a single instance of the FPC, and then I go and I change the insert here, the target mixer track, and then I go and I make sure that every single instrument that I have in my channel rack has an insert here, and I usually like to name things so that whenever they export, it exports with let's say stems underscore and the name of the mixer track here. So it's a little bit you have to understand what you are doing in this case, and you have to understand the distinction between mixer tracks and playlist tracks, which they are different. You might have a sound here that you want to separate, but if you don't have a specific that sound assigned to a single track here, then you might have issues when exporting the sounds, unless you just go and you do something like this where you solo that single track and export the track as a WAV file. But again, if you have like 20 tracks, 25, 50 tracks, then you have to do this 50 times. And as you've seen, if we do it here in the mixer, you just name everything, and with that you also have a little bit more organization inside of your project, but at the same time it's easier when you want to export things. So I think that helped. I hope that helped and that answered the question. So understanding the difference between playlist tracks and mixer tracks is very important for this type of things when you want to export the stems of your project. And I do this all the time because I usually produce on FL Studio and then I mix on Studio One, but then I master on FL Studio. So I'm always jumping between DAWs to get the best out of the things that or the DAWs, the software that I'm using, because I really don't like FL Studio for mixing. I don't know why. It's my favorite DAW for music production, for putting ideas down, to work with Midi. I really enjoy the tools that FL Studio has, and I'm very fast when it comes to making beats in FL Studio or making music in FL Studio. But then when it comes to mixing, I really don't like the way FL Studio works, because as you've seen, the playlist tracks and the mixer tracks are not the same, and that can bring a little bit of confusion. For instance, if I show you here Studio One, you see that a track here is named Kick and is the same here, Kick. So every single track has an association with the playlist here, or the timeline and the mixer. So there's a one-to-one mapping of the mixer of what you see here in the edit section and or the playlist section or timeline section. I don't know how they call it. And also on the mix page. So there's a one-to-one relationship. In FL Studio, there is not a one-to-one relationship between the playlist tracks and the mixer tracks. So that's why I think it's a little bit confusing for me, at least, to mix in FL Studio. I don't like it, and that's why I jump in between DAWs. But again, FL Studio is still my best tool for making beats. And also for mastering. So it is what it is. Okay. Let's go to the next question. And let me just prepare here the FL Studio. The next question is how to extract notes from a sample directly to MIDI. So this is a good one, is a nice question. And there's several ways to do this in FL Studio. So let's jump into FL Studio so that I can show you. And this might not be 100% reliable, but is a really, really cool starting point. So let's bring here a piano sample pack that I have here. Let's go with Wave. This looks a little bit complex. Let's try with this one. So the tool that I usually like to use for this would be either you could use Edison, you could use Newtone. So I'm going to start with the Newtone, and then we can jump into and use Edison. So let's go here and let's bring the sample, which is 90 BPMs. Let's put this at 90 BPMs so that we kind of have a same a match in terms of BPMs. And if I drag this and drop, if I do this, you see that I can play this now. And as you've seen, it played all the notes. So if I go here, let's load a piano. Let's use not addictive drums. These are drums, not pianos. Let's go with addictive keys. And let's say that I want to take all these notes. And I want to extract the notes, the MIDI notes. There's this button here, which is send to piano roll or copy to MIDI clipboard. So if I just click here, you see that this gave me all the notes there that this belongs to. So let's listen to see the difference. So it's not 100%, and this is actually a very hard case. But the one thing that I can see, let's play the sample again. Okay, let's see. So there is also a very high note there. Let's maybe go to C6. So one thing that we could get is already from, we might not get the entire sound. And again, I told you this might be a little bit hard, but we will get there. Let's remove some of the notes. Maybe here. Okay, so we have something there. Let's bring the sample itself so that we can compare the sample with what we are playing. So I would say this one does not belong. So this would be the same note, A. And one thing that this is only playing is playing only the notes. So if I wanted to do like a chord, I would have to probably extend this. Okay, so this would be maybe a minor. Okay, so let's take this one here and also put a minor there. Okay, so here we would have to go, let's see, I don't know which note would be this one. Okay, let's see, maybe this one. No. Let's go one octave higher so that it's easier to listen to. Okay, let's see. I think this has C in it. Okay. So this could be the note. This one is a little bit out of time or off time. Let's move this one maybe there. But as you can see, with a little bit of work, we were able to get the chords that we had. So this was a cool starting point. Of course, it didn't made a very, what's the word that I'm looking for? A very perfect job. But as you've seen, it's kind of easy to extrapolate afterwards. And this one might be here. Let me listen. Yeah, something like that. Let's try maybe an easier sample. Yeah, this one could work a little bit better. So what I'm going to do this time is going to bring Edison. So Edison also has some MIDI capabilities to recognize. Let me see if I can find them. I think this would help. It would allow to do also MIDI analysis. It's actually not an option here. So this is only to send to the playlist as an audio clip. So I don't think we would be able to do that. But anyways, let me bring here. Let's do detect pitch regions. Yeah, but this would not work very well because this is not recognizing actually the pitch of the, this is all over the place. So Edison is out of question. So let's go ahead again and let's use new tone to get the pitch of the notes of the sample. And this time maybe might be a little bit easier. So let's select again the addictive keys. And let's send this to the channel. So let's listen to the sample itself. So as you can see, it's not fully, it's not recognizing all the notes. We could do something like this to maybe get, no, this will not work. Let's see how it sounds. Well, not close at all. I think this is kind of like a fail. I thought I would be able to get a very easier thing with that. I don't think I was able to really showcase this, but again, I've worked with the other samples in the past that it was way easier to get to extract the right pitch of the notes of the sample. But again, I think this one was not the best case scenario, so I do apologize for that. But you can always go and try for yourself. Grab a sample that you want the notes of, and just bring it into Newtone and try to get an idea if that would extract the notes that you want. If not, you can always open up SliceX, bring the sample into the SliceX, and then go ahead and check for the. So for this case, we have two notes. Let's do just one note here. So let's say that we want to check what is the pitch of this note here. You could just go here and do detect pitch regions. And we can see that it gave us D. So this would be D, then D3 there, C sharp, D sharp. So you could follow, as in this case E, you could follow kind of this indication here and try to get the notes from the sample itself. I don't like too much about, what I don't like about this method here is that, for instance, it didn't recognize this. It recognized these like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different markers, which is not good at all. So what they could do is, as we've seen, if I do like detect auto slice, medium auto slicing, if I do for all of them, it gives me a pretty good slicing of the notes. What they could do is first do an auto slicing, and then on the single slices get me the actual note of the sample or the marker here. So instead of creating new regions, just give me a rough estimation of the note there, but they don't do that. So we have to go through this, and then we have to go every single note and see, okay, this is D or D sharp or E or A or C or whatever. And then that's a good way also to get an idea of the notes of the sample. So I think this one was hard. I don't think I feel I couldn't really explain how to do that. So sorry for that. But again, one thing that I usually say here is I will do my best. Sometimes my best is not good enough, but it is what it is. No worries. Okay, and let's go to the last question that I have here. And this question is a good question that it requires some understanding. And the question is, can you explain the grid modes? Yes. So let's jump into FL Studio. Let me just prepare here. And if we go to the playlist, we have here a wrench, I guess, or a horseshoe or a magnet. Maybe that's a magnet. Yeah. So this symbol here, if you click here, you have a bunch of options. So usually what I stick to is these ones here. To be honest, I usually only go with most of the time I go for step, beat, and bar. And I'm going to explain these three, and then we can go through the fractions here, and also none. So if we look at the playlist here, if I enlarge this, you can see that I have numbers on top. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then I have these big squares here, or these lines, these black lines or darker lines that divide the playlist or the timing of the playlist. So if I click there, I'm in 1. And if I try to click again in the middle, I can't. But if I go here, I need a pattern. So if I try to move, as you've seen, if I try to, I'm clicking on the left button. If I move this here in the middle or in one quarter, a quarter, 1/4, yeah, a quarter of the beat, nothing happens. But if I go half above half, what happens is it jumps to the next one. So if I go 1, 2, if I want to go in between, I can only go from 2 to 3, to 3 to 4, and 4. Then 5 is not going to show. I would need another pattern there. So as you can see, I can move this around, but only in these increments here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's it. So these are bars. So from 1 to 2, it's 1 bar. 2 to 3 is another bar. And if I do a loop here, we have a 4-bar loop. So this is the 4-bar loop. If I go, for instance, as you can see, we have bar selected. If I go for beat, means that every bar has 4 beats, which what is going to happen is that it's going to subdivide this measure here into 4. So if I do that, you now see that we have some grayish lines here, or less dark than these ones here on the bar. And as you can see, now I can go 1 bar, 1 beat, 2 beats, 3 beats, and 4 beats, which represents 1 bar. And I can do the same thing here on these ones. So what the grid is doing, or these numbers here in the grid, is subdividing the grid so that we can subdivide and have access to different points in the grid. So let's say that I wanted to add a pattern here on the first, after the first beat. I would just go here, select the beat, and then I would put a pattern there. So let's say that I want a pattern there and another one there, and I want to replicate this. So then you could do that. But now let's say that I want to do half of 1 beat. How can I do that? I can go here, and then I could do 1.5 beats. And now I could do here, for instance. I can go in half of a beat, and I can put patterns in half of a beat. So this, basically, the grid allows us to subdivide the beat section into parts. And of course, we can have 1/3 of a beat, 1/4 of a beat, and 1/6 of a beat. The next one is the step. And a step basically is 1/4 of a beat. And as you can see here, we have, this is 1 beat, and I can subdivide this into a step. So 1 step would be just a measure of, or 4 steps would be 1 beat. And if I do, let's try to do that here, a representation of the thing. So this would be a bar. Then we would have a beat, something like that. Let's delete that. Then we would have 1/2 beats, or half a beat. And then we would have a step. And as you can see, this is how we subdivide. So in this case, a bar is 1/4, or a beat is 1/4 of a bar. 1.5 beats is half a bar, and a step is 1/4 of a beat. So I hope that was easy to follow, but you have to understand the measures to do a little bit more manipulation of stuff in the playlist. And also not the playlist, we can also have here in the piano roll, it works the same, the symbol is the same, and as you can see, the measures are the same. So if I want to add a note here, me just make this bigger. If I want to have a chord, let's go with C minor. If I want to add a chord 1 bar or 1 beat long, I could just go here, select or 1 bar long. I could just select a bar and then make the chords that I want, like this. If I want to make a 1 beat chord, I can just go and now reduce that, because if I'm in bar mode, I can only increase or decrease by 1 bar. So if I want to decrease to a beat, I have to put the snapping to the grid to that point. So snapping to the grid means that the movements of the mouse left to right is going to snap to the nearest position. And in this case, it's a bar. So the snapping is based on a bar. So it's going to always jump from this point to that point to that point. If I go even finer, I go here to step, and then I can go for smaller sizes, and I can go even smaller. So 1/6. As you can see, this is very granular. So we can go with very granular positions like that. And if I zoom in, you see that it still blocks. Then we have the none. And this one here basically just disables the grid. And we can still see the steps in the grid mode, in the grid here. But what happens is that there's no snapping whatsoever. And as you can see, I can go very close there. I can move past the beat mark there. And this is very nice when you want to make fine adjustments without having to have a snapping to the grid. And if I zoom in, you see that I can go, it's going to be always granular. So there's always jumps, but these are very small jumps. For instance, if I go there, let's put here and let's do 1/6. So as you can see there, this is the minimum snapping to the grid that I can go with 1/6 of a step. So taking only this part here, which is actually it's not even a step. So a step is, let me just do a step there. I think it's not a step there. This is a step. So as you can see, this is taking a step and subdividing it by 6, even though we don't see the grid, but this is what's going on. But here in the none, if I do select none, you can see that now I can go even in the middle of the minimum 1/6 of a note. So this is basically what it means. Whenever you want to do, for instance, whenever I'm editing audio in FL Studio, I mostly go with none because I want to go very precise. If I'm doing MIDI notes, I usually stay with step, and I just go and place the notes whenever I want and move them around, stuff like that. Let's do a right cut there. You can see that I can move the notes around. Also, if I want to go automatically into none, I can click on Alt. As you can see, Alt is selected there, and now automatically gives me removes the snapping to the grid, and I can move freely and select the it was the same as going here, selecting none, moving around, and then going back and selecting step. So this would save me 4 clicks in the mouse. I could just click on Alt and I'm automatically in none. I leave it, and now I'm in step mode again. So I hope that helped. So this is the grid modes. You will have a grid mode here in the playlist or in the piano roll, but also in the playlist, and they work the same. They work pretty much the same. And I don't think we have any other snapping to the grid. I think it's only in the playlist and the piano roll. Okay, so I think that's it. It's already 7:10. and I'm going to finish the live stream here for today. Thanks for the questions. Again, if you want to have your questions answered, you can leave them here in the chat. You can leave them in the comments in my YouTube videos, and you can subscribe to the newsletter where I have a link. It's in the description, and you can subscribe, and I will be sending every Friday, I will be sending a form where you can post your questions, and those questions have priority. I think that's it, guys and girls. Thanks for watching. Thanks for putting a like. I see there was a couple of likes here in the video, in the live stream. Thank you very much for supporting this channel. Again, if you want to see the EDM from start to finish series 5 remix, where I show you the entire mixing process, you can become a member of the channel and you will have access to that. That's it. My name is Tiago Duarte. Thanks again for watching, and I hope you have a great weekend. See you next one. Peace.